Hey, this is Derek. I'm working on my book, but I want to make a quick video about two things that I saw recently. I want to quickly comment on them that had to do with publishing deals. So the first one was I saw someone who had made a formal announcement. This is pretty common on Twitter where they say, I'm so excited, I got a publishing deal thanks to my agent, thanks to the publisher. And what caught my interest about that, they're pretty common, but I always want to kind of check. There's a sort of lingo with publishing deals. They say it's a good deal or a very good deal, or there's like a list of words that relate to how much the advance actually is, rather than just coming out and saying, this is a 20K advance or whatever. There's certain phrases that dictate whether this is 20 to 50K or 100K and above, or whatever. So I wanted to kind of look. I don't remember what about it especially caught my interest, but I was curious about what kind of deal this actually was. It's probably professional curiosity. It might be a little bit of jealousy where, I see someone else who got a publishing deal and I think, I could do that. I wonder if that's worth it. I wonder if, this is good for her or not. But I went on to the publisher's website and I saw some red flags that I want to talk about. One of the things I think caught my attention was something like, this is a profit share publishing company or something like that. And I didn't get too deep into the details, but there was something like, maybe she didn't even get any advance, or maybe she's getting a profit, like a percentage of royalties or sales rather than an advance upfront. There's all sorts of new hybrid publishing models. So it could have been something like that where you can announce that you got a good deal and still not even get an advance. It would just be a percentage of sales, which for me would be worrying. I am also of the opinion that most advances aren't worth it anyway. An average advance is $5,000 or $10,000. Even if you're getting 25 grand or so, that's split over 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and it's an advance on royalties. Most books don't earn out their advance. So to get paid 25K sounds great, but if you spent 2 years writing a book and 2 more years, publishing the book, that's 4 or 5 years that you have to spread out that 25K. It's not a full-time income. Even if it's really exciting to get a publishing deal, it may not be enough money to live on. Self-publishing is not easy, but I think if you do everything right and you have a good book, then you could make 25K or more. And the cool thing about self-publishing is basically nobody earns any money until you do. Once you get to the point, if you can sell 100 copies, 1,000 copies, that means you have your audience and product dialed in and it's converting well. You're either not making any money because you can't spend profitably and make the money back because your book doesn't convert or you don't know who your audience is, or you can. Once you're profitable, you can scale with ads and there's no limit to earnings. But the other thing that really caught my attention about this deal that she was excited about was that I looked on the publisher's website and the covers were bad. And this is a huge red flag for me as a cover designer, because if no matter who you sign with, whether you're paying for some kind of a vanity press or self-publishing press, or you're signing a deal and selling some of your rights, either for an advance or for a split in the royalties, if they don't give you a great cover, you're doomed to fail. It doesn't matter what kind of advance you got. If that publishing company can't invest in the best cover that's attractive to your audience, they're not going to have any success marketing or selling your book for you. Your book is going to be dead on arrival. So for me, that was really worrying because she was really excited. You spend years pitching an agent, you finally get an agent, the agent pitches publishing companies, you finally get a deal, you've done all of this work, and they don't provide you with a quality cover. For me, it doesn't matter about the details of the publishing deal or the advance, because none of that's going to matter. So I felt bad for the author. It's completely normal to get roped into some kind of a vanity press or to sign up with a hybrid press. Or, if you're indie publishing or self-publishing, not being able to afford a good cover or not knowing what a good cover actually looks like, there are reasons that these things happen. But what caught my attention about this was that it was a legitimate agent and a legitimate, it looked like, publisher and a legitimate announcement, not just like the person on Twitter announcing it, but one of those, I forget where, Publishers Weekly or something, one of those places that announces publishing deals. So they were announcing, congratulations to this author and this agent for signing a deal, which meant it looks above board. It looks like, a celebration of a legitimate publishing contract. But behind the scenes, I was really worried for the author because they were signing with a publishing company that could not get the covers right, which is a big problem. So don't just assume that when you sign with someone, that's the end of the road and they're going to take care of all the details. That's what a lot of authors do, is they sign up with a publishing company because then they don't have to worry about the details. But if the publishing company can't handle the details, it's not worth it, almost regardless of, or irregardless of, now that I can use that because it's in the dictionary. If they can't get the cover right, that's just a big problem. So you want to, no matter who you're investigating or thinking about signing up with, you want to make sure you check their other published books and their covers and how well they're selling. And maybe get a professional, because if you don't know covers for your genre, you may not be able to recognize that these are shitty covers and that they can't provide quality design. So the other story that really worried me, or made me feel chagrined, was an article on another big self-publishing site, which was supposed to be like a feel-good, it can happen to you too article, where someone is, older, probably 70s or 80s. I've got clients who are like 90 and they're still working on the books. There's no age limit, but what caught my attention, it was basically saying, I finished my book, nobody wanted it, I revised it for 3 years, I edited it, I got a lot of feedback and critique, I kept submitting, I kept sending out, I had all this mound of rejection letters stacking up, and I kept working on the book until eventually I got an agent. That was kind of the point of the article, where it was supposed to be like, if you just wait, if you just keep working on your book, it can happen to you too. So that already raises red flags for me, because if you've written a book that doesn't have an audience, you shouldn't just be revising it or pitching it. Like, yes, to some extent, your first book is not the best. If you believe in your book, you can keep revising it, figure out what you did wrong, and fixing it, except it's really hard to fix a broken book. If you've written not a bad book, but if you've written a book without a market and you haven't structured it in a way that satisfies readers, it's difficult to revise it up to the point where it's good enough, as opposed to just writing a good book on purpose with intention by improving your craft and focusing on how to write good books. Most authors aren't interested in doing that. They just want to fix the story that they want to tell, which is fine. It's a learning experience, but there's only so much you can learn revising the same book for years as opposed to fixing the story. And at that point, you're mostly like improving the writing, but rarely are you fixing the story, which is the thing that actually matters. But anyway, in this case, they waited for years, they revised for years, they got an agent. I think they might have had a bite at a publishing company. So that was kind of the point, was like, yay, if you just keep working on it and submitting, eventually it can happen to you. But the way that this article ended was basically, but then the publishing company shut down, and the agent couldn't sell it, and it's been like, since COVID, it's been stalled for another year. So the other danger of signing up with a publishing company is that it's not over when you get a bite or even when you get a deal. They can drop you, they can renegotiate the terms. A lot of publishing companies are shutting down right now. A lot of companies in general, due to COVID, are shutting down, but specifically in books. And you see that everywhere in business. Publishing companies are focused on the quick and easy money. It's no longer the case that they can make a bet and decide what they think is going to be popular and back it with a big marketing budget, and it's going to take off because the market is too fast and too critical, even to the point where they will be reactive. If a publishing company comes in and tries to tell the community, this is going to be the biggest, best new thing, we want you to help us promote this, everybody's going to say no. Everyone's going to see that as negative because the publishers or the authors or the marketers or the agents are trying to dictate reader response. And And we're at this place in our culture where that doesn't fly anymore, where reviewers have all the power, people who have a platform that's independent of, getting paid to review or being treated well and getting free books or whatever. Reviewers care more about their integrity and their autonomy and their authentic response. And even it's worth it to them. Like there's a kind of performance reviewing that's happening in some genres like young adult fiction where they're incentivized to write angry rants against even popular books where they tear books apart. And part of it's due to cancel culture, part of it's due to, finding things that they can stir their audience up and, get more engagement, get more response. They will do more, they will get more traction and more shares and more visibility by writing something negative than by writing something positive. So that's another feature of it. I got off point, but I was basically trying to say it's not great just to get a publishing deal. You really have to look at the fine print. It doesn't mean you've made it. It doesn't mean you're going to make any money. It doesn't mean the book is going to be successful. And it doesn't necessarily mean the book is better or it has more commercial appeal. None of that stuff is true. You can still try to get a traditional publishing deal. It's one way of getting your books to the market. I don't personally think it's the best way, and I don't think it's worth the time investment to learn. It's a completely different business to learn how to package and position and sell your book to those people, to a publisher or an agent. You have to speak a different language. You have to be doing different things as opposed to getting the book ready to market and launching it and publishing it. In the end, the market is going to dictate whether the book is successful anyway. And I think if you learn how to do the work, you will have more success long-term with your own books by self-publishing. The other downside of traditional publishing is that you spend all your time and investment learning the game of selling your book to a traditional publisher, but you're not practicing your craft and you're not learning how to build your audience, how to build your email list, how to make sure you choose a good book cover for your book. You're not learning anything. So hopefully other people are going to do it for you, but probably that's not actually going to happen. And when it all shuts down because the company goes out of business or the agent fails to sell it or the first book doesn't sell so they cancel everything else, eventually if your first book doesn't sell, nobody else is going to take your second book. So you're going to be self-publishing eventually anyway, even if you got into a traditional publishing deal the first time around. Or you might realize, this is not very good money for the amount of work. I might want to make more money by not trusting the traditional publishers to do a good job and sell my books, because you've seen on the other side of it how little it matters if you're traditionally published or if you got in advance, how little the market actually cares about your book just because you were able to jump through those hoops and do it successfully. I really want to caution you against, it's fine to shoot for traditional publishing if that's what you want to do. I want to caution you to really study what they're going to do for you in that contract. The advance aside, make sure you know and you check the fine print details. What happens if they don't sell any copies? Do you get your rights back? Do they keep the rights? Are you selling your movie or your video game rights? Like, what are you giving up for what amount of money? Is that really worth it to you? What about, if you write other books, like just because they took one book, they might have a clause in the publishing contract that says, we want first dibs at all the other books you write in the next 5 or 10 years. There might be a clause like that, which means you can't just self-publish something, or you can't try to market or sell your book to another agent. You have to try to give it to them first. And if they don't want it, they might, that might slow you up for a year. They might say, well, send us your manuscript and we'll think about it. And then it's on their desk and you have to wait until they decide whether or not they want it before you do anything with it. So things like that can really mess you up long term. And like I said earlier, just make sure they are capable of bringing your book to market in the right way. Make sure that the other books in your genre that they've published have been successful, have had great covers, have reviewed well on Amazon. A lot of traditional publishers, they don't even consider Amazon. So you look at their Amazon page and they don't have any reviews because they don't publish genre-specific stuff. They don't have a genre-specific email list. They're not focused on online marketing because their whole thing is, doing the traditional model of getting the books out in the bookstores. And in the bookstores, you don't really have very much control about how the book appears, or, the reviews aren't there. It's all about selling your book in bookstores. They don't have to worry about the online stuff. But that's a huge disadvantage and mistake. A lot of traditional publishers are realizing that and correcting that by stepping into Amazon in a really big way, and Amazon ads and stuff, which they haven't done in the past. They're only doing it now because, bookstore sales are down so much. So this is kind of just two stories that serve as a cautionary tale about traditional publishing. I still think first-time authors are tempted by the idea of being a traditional published author. They want to be a real author. They want the external validation that their writing is good, and they don't want to deal with any of the publishing or marketing stuff. So it's tempting, it's seductive to want to go traditional. I understand that, but I also want to get the message out that for a lot of authors, not only is that not the easy path, it's not the best path. It's not the path towards success. It's not the path towards more earning or more recognition or building a fan base or getting more book reviews. There's a lot of severe limitations in taking a traditional publishing deal. I've said in the past, from what I've heard from other people, I wouldn't take a deal unless it was a 100K deal, which means, because how traditional publishing works is that they buy 100 books for 10K or something, and one of those books makes money. But the traditional publishers, they don't really know, so they're not going to invest in marketing or publishing each of those books. They're just going to put them out there and see which one makes the money. So you're not guaranteed, just because you get an advance doesn't mean they're going to do anything for you. The value in having a big deal, a 100K deal, is that they're invested. They have to do the marketing because they have to recoup their investment. So that's why I wouldn't take a smaller deal. Also, the way to get a big traditional publishing deal is to build a platform. So if you build a platform, if you've written a popular book for a market, if you know who your market is, and you're building an audience or a platform so that you can reach that market directly, then you can tell agents or publishers why your book is going to sell, how you're going to sell the book, because you've already made those relationships, you've already got the experience, you've already built your platform. That's what makes you a more attractive author in a lot of cases. It's the reason why most big traditional publishing houses are not really signing up new debut authors very much anymore, or at least they're not offering them the 100K deals like they were 5 or 10 years ago, because it's just too big of a risk. So what they're doing instead is finding someone with a really big audience and just pumping out a lot of the same content. They're pumping out a lot of reprints or sequels, or giving a lot of money to A-list authors who they know can deliver and already have an audience. That's where they're investing anyway, because that's a safer bet. It means it's harder to get traditionally published now than it ever has before. As a debut author, it means you really need a commercial book with a clear audience that they know they can sell. And you have to figure some of that stuff out. An agent might help you, but you can't get an agent without communicating to an agent that this book has commercial value. The point of a traditional publisher is to make money. If not, they go out of business. They're not in the business of supporting art or creativity. They want good, fresh, unique books, but they've got to be able to sell. And if you don't know who your audience is or who's going to buy the book or why, you're going to have trouble convincing anybody else that your book has any value. Value doesn't mean the quality of the writing. Value means how many people can they get to buy this book. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here. I don't know if I've said anything useful, but mostly, if you are going to shoot for traditional publishing, make sure you really focus on the fine details and investigate who is this publisher, what are they really offering, and are they capable of selling my book? Do they have the right reach and audience and experience to sell my book to the right readers? Have they done this before? What have their results been? What happens if they fail to sell the book? How soon do I get my rights back? Am I committing my future as an author? You know, is it going to be tied to this particular publisher, even if they mess things up with my first book? Questions like that you need to be asking. Don't get overly excited because you finally realize your dream of securing an agent or a traditional publishing deal, so you're willing to overlook all the details, or you're willing to overlook, well, they're not paying me, or the advance isn't very good, or the profit share isn't very good, but who cares because this is what I wanted. You know, make sure your enthusiasm doesn't force you into choosing bad decisions. Anyway, thanks. That's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments if you have strong opinions or any opinions or questions about traditional versus self-publishing, and I'll get back to you in the comments. Thanks. Bye-bye.